this video, I'm going to talk about why I'm absolutely in love with Vivian Maier's photography and how I fell in love with it. Yo, my name is Matt, and on this channel we talk about street photography. So to give a quick background on Vivian Maier in case you didn't know, the whole thing about her story is that she was this nanny in the suburbs of Chicago who did street photography, and none of her photos were ever shown while she was alive. She was discovered after she died. This guy, John Maloof, was at an auction and bought all these boxes filled with her negatives, and upon developing them, he was like, oh, these might be pretty good, but I'm not sure. And then he shared them with other people and everyone was like, oh, these are really good, you got to put this work out. And so that's how we know Vivian Maier today. And she's pretty controversial because a lot of people talk about her and who she was as a person, and her photography is kind of mixed in with that. But that's not what this video is about. We're not going to talk about Vivian Maier as a person. We're strictly going to talk about her photography, specifically her color work. So in the intro, I said I was a hater of her work, and this is how that happened. I go to this bookstore once a week and I just pick up any photography book that's not wrapped and that I can read. I picked up her book, Vivian Maier, The Color Work, and honestly, I thought a lot of the work shown in that book was boring. The compositions weren't really interesting. The subject matter and the stories were not interesting or intriguing at all. Honestly, I thought to myself, I could have taken these photos myself. But with that being said, there was something about the book, about the whole body of work, that made me pick it up again the next time I came. And not just because it was one of the few books that were unwrapped. So this time around, reading through the book closely, I noticed 4 specific things that I think really made me fall in love with her work. And the first is her insight. Like, through these photos, I could really see her grasp on when to shoot a photograph. You could really see that in these photos where she's taking pictures of people doing certain things at certain moments where you're like, if you weren't there at the right place, right time, with your camera ready to hit the shutter button and know to hit the shutter button, then you just would have missed it. Like, it just would have been gone just like that. And another thing I realized about her insight is that not only do you have to be in the right place, right time to get these moments, but you have to create these moments. You have to go out You have to go out a lot into the world, and Vivian Maier obviously did that. Researching her afterwards, I found out that she shot at least 150,000 negatives. 150,000 negatives basically turns out to be about 2,600 photos a year, which ends up being about 6 rolls a month. So she consistently went out and shot. And if you ever shot a roll of film, it's hard, right? Like, it's hard to actually get through 36 exposures, or I don't even know, whatever it was back then, but she went through a lot of film basically, and she also spent a lot of money on it. If I'm assuming that she bought 35mm film at today's prices, she spent over 30K on this passion of hers. So I gotta respect the grind, the hustle, the commitment, the investment. She put her money where her mouth is, and she put her time where her mouth is, or you know what I mean. She put the time in, and you gotta respect that. And the second thing I noticed was that her photos as a whole really show this warm human tenderness out on the streets, where, you know, street photography can be like really gritty and really rough around the edges, but her color photos really show this softer side to people. And I think it's a combination of the colors, the gestures that the people in her photos make, and also the expressions that they have, as well as the subject matter that she shoots. And it's the second point that has really struck a chord with me. I've been on the fence about taking portraits on the street of strangers and how to actually do that. I've somehow found myself in these online echo chambers and discussions where people are talking about what constitutes an authentic street portrait. You know, is asking someone to pose or asking for their permission, and then them, you know, posing for you, does that make it staged versus going up in someone's face either invisibly or inconspicuously, or just right up in their face like what Bruce Gilden does? Is that more authentic or real? I personally have a hard time vibing with the process that Bruce Gilden kind of does, kind of basically scaring the shit out of people or sneaking up on them and taking a picture up in their face. But for Vivian Maier, she definitely asked them to pose for portraits. And even though she asked them to pose and it becomes whatever staged, her portraits still come across as extremely authentic, and they show this warm, like, human tenderness and compassionate side, and it gets communicated across. When I look at her work like that and feel that, it gives me a sense of calm and resolution, knowing that, hey, you know, like, if she definitely asked some of these people to pose in these portraits and they came out like that and they communicate like that, then I don't see anything wrong with asking people for their permission, which sounds crazy when I phrase it like that, because you should ask like it's being decent. It just gives me confidence to go out and ask people and be okay with asking people and knowing that the results will reflect the process. And I'm not saying Bruce Gilden's work or any type of portraits like that or that are made like that are bad. I'm just saying they're different. They're both great stylistically, visually, and emotionally, just in their own way. But on top of the insight and the warmth in her photos, the third thing that made me fall in love with her work is her authenticity. She shoots what she wants to shoot, and it shows. Like, when you see a lot of reoccurring pictures of mannequins and the backs of people's heads with funny, funky hairstyles, and I think desire has been an important thing that a lot of the OGs in street photography keep pressing on, especially someone like Daido Moriyama, for example. You gotta follow your desire and shoot what interests you. And Vivian Maier's work definitely exudes that desire and authenticity. And the fourth final point is that I think her composition is actually amazing. It's not what I said when I first looked at the book, that they're boring. They're really good. Like the man in the old booth or the kids in the car, just the way they're framed and just the way that they're composed in the photos are really dynamic. I was just being a hater, I don't know why. So yeah, now I think her work is amazing. I think what made me sip on that haterade in the beginning was just that she did things in her work that I wish I could do. The feelings that she exudes in her photos are what I'm definitely drawn to, because it's how I want to, it's how I do, it's how I would like to see life. And I want to reflect that in my own photos as well. So at the beginning of this video, I said I wouldn't talk about Vivian Maier the person and only about her photography. But in researching her and watching this documentary called Finding Vivian Maier, which is produced by the John Maloof guy, there was this shared sentiment across all the interviewees that went something basically like, you know, why did she take all these photos if she was never going to share it? It's the fact that she didn't share it that actually makes me respect her as a person, as the photographer, even more. Because fact is, she didn't share it. Like, we'll never know why she didn't share it. The only person that knows is her, and if she didn't share it, then that must mean that she did it just because she liked it. And if she didn't do it for herself, then what the hell are we doing if not for ourselves? It's like asking me or someone who plays sports, like, why do you play basketball if you're never gonna be a pro? Well, I'm never gonna be a pro, but I'm still gonna play anyway because I like it. So I'm gonna leave you with that. If you enjoyed this video, then I definitely recommend checking out my other photographer breakdowns here that I think you might enjoy.